What's going on, YouTube? Thank you guys so much for coming back to the Hoops by AP YouTube channel. Listen, we're in the dead of the off season, so all we've got to make videos about and talk about as NBA fans, as Thunder fans, are rumors. And without a doubt, the biggest rumor, and maybe not even a rumor, maybe more of a fact over the last few days that's been circulating on social media is that Ben Simmons is trying to make a return to the NBA. If you don't know who Ben Simmons is, he's largely known for his time in Philadelphia as a 76er. He was a three-time All-Star, the first overall pick in the 2016 draft. At one point, he looked like one of the most unique, physical talents in the entire NBA. And now he's out of the NBA, trying to fight his way back in and get a contract. And well, OKC has one roster spot. So I'm making this video to answer the question, should OKC with their 15th roster spot take a look at Ben Simmons? He was one of the most fascinating young guys in the entire NBA for a long time. And this is a comeback story that we've been maybe anticipating for a little bit. And so I'm gonna answer the question, should OKC take a look at Ben Simmons? But before we answer that, let me give you a little context into who he is and the type of player that he was, in case maybe you're new to the NBA or you've just started following the Thunder over the last few years as they've been super successful. So Ben Simmons was, like I said, the first overall pick in 2016. Now that year he won Rookie of the Year, pretty prestigious award. 6'10" point guard. Now, let me stop right there for a second. 6'10" point guards, or just big point guards in general, are what the NBA is looking for. Franchises are looking for guys that can run offense and initiate offense at a larger size. Luka Doncic is the perfect example of this. He's the perfect example of a modern point guard that people want. That was exactly what it looked like we had in Ben Simmons. He was an elite transition player because of his height and his freak athleticism. He was a defensive monster, and he got awarded for that many times, and he was a three-time All-Star. So this guy was unbelievably unique. He could initiate offense at 6'10", which again is just unbelievably rare in the NBA. He could guard 1 through 5, which matters so much in today's NBA that people are able to switch when ball screens come and all that kind of stuff. He could get the ball, he could run, he could finish at the rim, he could create for teammates. In many ways, he was kind of the perfect young prospect. And that's what I want you guys to remember as we're talking about a potential Ben Simmons return. This is not just some role player that's interested in rejoining the NBA. If you look, guys like Victor Oladipo, they're always talking about a return to the NBA, but Ben Simmons at his peak was not that quality of player. He was elite. So in the 2019, 2020, and then kind of 2020, 2021 seasons, this is when Ben Simmons was at his best in Philadelphia. He was an all-star, like we mentioned. He was an all-defensive level talent. He was in Defensive Player of the Year conversation in all these seasons, and he was one of, if not the best, perimeter defenders in the league at the time. One of the best guys on ball guarding. And so he's got all these accolades, and if you're thinking about it, 2020 wasn't that long ago, and 2016 when he was drafted also wasn't that long ago, so what happened? Let me tell you. So obviously with all this hype, there were enormous expectations placed on him, rightfully. Now, what happened is he kind of folded under those expectations, and it started a little slowly, and then in one moment it just came crashing down. So Ben Simmons throughout his career, although he was scoring pretty effectively and he was a really good young player, he was never a good shooter. And while that was an issue, it never was more of an issue than in the series that I'm about to talk about. So in the 2021 playoffs, if you don't know, the Atlanta Hawks played the Philadelphia 76ers, and this is just where it all went wrong. Now, specifically, Ben Simmons was struggling with free throw issues, which was kind of already putting him in a very bad light with the Philadelphia fan base. He was getting to the free throw line and he couldn't convert at all, which is a huge problem in the playoffs, but there was something worse going on, and it was less of an on-the-court thing and more of a confidence thing with Ben Simmons, and this is where we saw his career just completely fall apart. If you guys don't know, one of the most iconic plays in this guy's entire career came in this series, and it specifically came against Trae Young. So remember, Ben Simmons, 6'10", unbelievably athletic, freaky athlete, very talented. He's driving the baseline, and he's about to go in for what looks like a pretty wide open dunk. Now, there's one defensive player in the way, but he's not in a particularly good position, and that defensive player is Trae Young. Now, Trae Young is unbelievably small. He's never been known to be a good defender, and quite frankly, that's putting it lightly. So instead of Ben Simmons taking advantage of bad positioning and just a smaller defender, his confidence is completely gone. And so he ends up kind of passing it around to his teammate. Now, this creates an unbelievably more difficult shot that ends up missing, so they go back the other way. Again, it's only worth 2 points, but this was basically the play where we knew Ben Simmons' time in the NBA was completely over because his confidence was completely gone. Like, this was the moment individually that changed Ben Simmons' career. If you don't know what I'm talking about, obviously you'll see the picture here on screen, but go look it up after. Like, this video is famous. If you type in Ben Simmons, it'll probably be the very first result because it's one of the most significant things, probably the most significant thing that ever happened in his career. Now, after that, he's got mental struggles clearly. Like, his confidence is completely gone, and so he's shrinking back as a player, and you can see it happening on the court. Now, on top of that, that wasn't the only struggle that Ben Simmons had. He started having very serious back problems. He ends up being traded to Brooklyn, and this is when his career really just completely starts to unravel. He has multiple back surgeries, so he's missing long stretches of time on the court. If you look back at his games played over the last handful of seasons that he was in the league, he hardly played any, which only contributed more to his lack of confidence on the court. He had long stretches away from basketball, and he could never regain his previous form. So guys, this story is honestly pretty crazy. Like, we go from a #1 overall pick who was panning out. He was an all-star. He was an elite defender. He was a franchise cornerstone. And a few years later, here we are. He is actually out of the league, posting videos on social media, trying to regain a roster spot in the NBA. And so the question that we need to ask now is, does Ben Simmons actually have anything left? Like, what would you be getting if you're a team and you decided, hey, with my last roster spot, I'm going to sign Ben Simmons to a vet minimum low contract? Well, where he could possibly still be valuable is his defense. He's still got the size. He still, in theory, could be switchable. But the reality is we will have no idea if any of that's true until he gets back on the court. Like, his last few seasons in the NBA, he had lost all his burst, all his athleticism due to all these serious injuries that he had. So again, they were actual injuries, but they completely derailed his career as well. So until he gets back on the court, I'm not ready to say that his athleticism is back, even though that's the news that's going around. So his defense could possibly be a benefit to a team, but I have to see it to believe it. Now, from a playmaking perspective, he's probably still got a little juice there. Like, you don't have to be quite as athletic to be able to see the court as well as he does and be able to take advantage of guys just based off his basketball IQ and those kind of things. Now, athletically, if some of that has come back, he'd still be pretty dangerous in transition. He could possibly be good rebounding, but his shooting has never gotten better. And every single year he posts videos of himself in the gym trying to convince us that his shooting has gotten better. I have no reason to think that Ben Simmons' shot will ever come around. I just don't think that that's going to happen, even if he were to come back and have a semi-successful career in a smaller role on some team. You'd have to worry about his free throws. You'd have to worry about his confidence. There's a lot of things that you have to take into account if you're considering signing Ben Simmons. The problem with Ben Simmons is not just that he doesn't shoot. The problem became teams knew he was afraid to shoot. And so he became a guy that you just literally didn't have to guard on the three-point line, which you guys know is a huge problem in the NBA. Like, if you're not respected from out there, it completely messes up spacing for the rest of your teammates. Look no further than Ausar Thompson. And obviously, Ausar is a guy that brings a lot more juice to his basketball team than Ben Simmons would at this point in his career. So this brings us to the OKC question. In any way could this make sense for Oklahoma City? In the few ways that it could, you could look at his size. Like, Oklahoma City really badly needs size on the wing. He would pretty instantly bring that. Oklahoma City has struggled at times with playmaking when Shea's out of the game. He could, in theory, address that. Now, the optimistic part of me looks at the Oklahoma City coaching staff and thinks, if anyone can fix Ben Simmons, it's the Oklahoma City coaching staff. And so there's this idea in my head where he comes back, he's slightly more athletic, he can help on the defensive side of the ball a little bit, he can snag some rebounds, he can play a few minutes of the game and be beneficial, but I don't think that's reality. And so at the end of the day, why I think Oklahoma City shouldn't do that is ultimately a basketball fit. Like, if you look at spacing, the Thunder needs shooting. Like, Ben Simmons standing in the corner does nothing for Oklahoma City because nobody has to respect him. Oklahoma City is also built on defense, so if his athleticism is not back, well, then you've got a guy that's basically completely unplayable for Oklahoma City. And then on top of that, even if he brought some value on the court, you absolutely have to look at his injury history. So while it's kind of fun to think about, I don't think Ben Simmons should ever play a single game in an Oklahoma City Thunder uniform. I don't think the Thunder should use their 15th roster spot on Ben Simmons. You can squint and you can come up with some fun hypotheticals, especially in the middle of the offseason. I'm guilty of doing that all the time. However, I don't think he would be a good fit in Oklahoma City. And ultimately, the Thunder have shown that they're very good at filling those last roster spots with guys that you wouldn't even imagine. And so I'd hate to see Oklahoma City fill a roster spot with a guy like this that ultimately isn't very playable. So guys, it's fun to talk about stuff like this. Obviously, I don't think Ben Simmons should be the 15th man on Oklahoma City's roster, but maybe you disagree. If you've talked about all this and you know about Ben Simmons' career, maybe you're convinced that he's going to come back better than I think he is. And if that's true, drop a comment. Let me know why I'm wrong. Again, you could probably convince me at this point in the summer that he might be worth taking a crack at. So drop a comment down below, guys. I appreciate you all watching. If you made it this far, please subscribe to the channel. It really does help a lot. I appreciate you all, and I'll see you guys around.